Hi, this is Ross. Welcome back to my football podcast. Who deserves the blame for England going out of the World Cup to Argentina? From being in a winning position in the 55th minute to losing two late goals. After the match, a lot of the criticism has been directed at the England manager Thomas Tuchel, and in this podcast, I'm going to outline why. I think that while it's fair to give him criticism for his strategy and tactics, substitutions late on, I also think it's fair to put some of the blame or some of the reasoning for England's defeat towards the players, and perhaps even some things outside of the England camp. Perhaps even the Premier League has an influence here. So let's go through what happened from minute 55 to the end of the game. I got up and rewatched it this morning, and here's how it unraveled for England. I thought it was probably a case of England dropping back immediately after scoring and inviting pressure onto themselves. My memory when I went to bed last night was of intense late pressure from Argentina. But there was about 20 minutes before that point where Argentina really ramped up the pressure, where the game was different. So after going 1-0 up in the 55th minute, England immediately pressed well on the front foot from that centre. They didn't just drop deep. There was even an opening with Harry Kane where he lost the ball in and around the Argentina penalty box. So it showed England could get forward. But then Argentina broke forward in the 57th minute and were only denied by a really great late tackle from, or I say late, I mean last gasp. I don't mean late in terms of him not playing the ball and clearing out the attacker. A great last gasp tackle from Jed Spence. From there, England retreated and really set up in a low block. So that attack forward from Argentina in the 57th minute really panicked England. In the 59th minute, they tried to pass out from the back and they couldn't. Argentina were pressing, but England's passing was woeful and they turned the ball over. Perhaps the players then reacted to that by thinking they had to sit in more because they just didn't have it in them at that stage of the game to play out and beat the Argentina press. They knew they were struggling and they were going to have to withstand some pressure. And so around about the hour mark, the pattern was set where England were in a really low block. But, and I think this is a key part of the game that cannot be overlooked, there was a flicker of hope in the 65th minute where England had a really good move forward that was ultimately ended with a pretty weak shot from Declan Rice. And then they retreated. Now, that move forward showed what was possible, that they could get up the pitch. They never built on that though. And in the 68th minute, there was a messy cross from the right. This theme's going to repeat. A Gonzalez header and Pickford made a great save. And then there was a hydration break. And I was thinking at that time, this break has come at a key time for England because it's going to give them a chance to regroup, reset, and then go into the latter stages of the game with a clear plan to get through to the full-time whistle. Ideally at 1-0 for them, but maybe even getting a second goal. That minutes between 65 and 68, I think, were a real key part in the conclusion of the game. The 65th minute showed England could push forward and get up the pitch if they had the attacking players on the pitch with the skills to get up towards the Argentina goal, and also the will and the mentality to do so. The 68th minute, however, showed Argentina carried the danger of Messi going wide, putting crosses into the box and creating chances to score that way. I think at that stage, Had the 68th minute chance not arrived and Pickford made a great save, Tuchel may have used the hydration break differently to reset England's mentality to keep trying to get on the front foot and going forward. As it was, I think that 68th minute chance really shaped his thinking and possibly shaped the thinking of the England players as well. So there may have been a recency bias there. He chose to focus on the latter chance for Argentina and bring on defenders to try and deal with that situation, rather than focusing on the former, where he could have said to himself, well, we did get up the pitch there, we did create a chance, that's what we need to keep doing going forward. So Konsa came on for Gordon, defender coming on for winger. That kind of ensured England are going to be on the back foot for the rest of the game. England took away one of their main attacking outlets to bring on a defender. 10 minutes later, on came Byrne and O'Reilly for Rice and James. At that point, like the bus is firmly parked. I thought O'Reilly was going to come on for Spence and switch at left back. Rather, O'Reilly went into midfield and then Byrne went into the back line. So that's a defender going more in the middle of the pitch and a defender going right into the heart of your back line. So the defence is firmly set up for the conclusion of the game. It only lasted 3 minutes, the resistance. The break forward in the 65th minute showed what was possible and should have been seized upon by the players and the manager. Who was on the pitch encouraging England to drive forward? Who was on the sideline encouraging England to go forward? There was an absence of both, and then both fed into each other. So Tuchel wasn't helped by his players. He wasn't helped by the defending from England late on. Despite all the players on the pitch, Argentina had loads of chances, denied by the posts, denied by saves from Jordan Pickford, and Tuchel can get blame for putting on more and more defenders and inviting pressure onto England. That said, the players who came on did not play particularly well and bail out their manager from that decision or give sort of show that their manager made the correct decision. So let's look at the two goals. Despite having more defenders on the pitch, the defence for the Argentina corner, which was a corner that they tried, that short corner was a corner they tried more than once in the game before. It's also a corner that I think they tried late on in a game against Netherlands. The shot from Fernandes might have hit the post on that occasion. I remember seeing it online just in the fallout of this semi-finals. So it's a corner routine that they use. That said, England were, instead of being on the front foot as that corner was taken, they were really far back in their own box. So Bellingham nearly gets out to get on the to block the shot from Fernandes. That's a fantastic goal. You can't take anything away from that. But despite a strong effort to try and get to the ball, he was too late in closing down the shot. And I would say he was too late in closing down the shot because his starting position to get out to the edge of the box was wrong. He'd retreated. The whole team had continually retreated. That was the mentality of England late on. Then for the Martinez winner, O'Reilly and Spence, both of them are on the left. They have a 2v1 with Messi. One can go towards the ball. One can be ready to go more towards the touchline and block him off. As it is, he gets past both of them. Amazing cross with his right foot. England have a row of really tall defenders in their box. John Stones is the defender who's closest to Lautaro. Never once does he check over his shoulder to see where the striker is. The striker who's smaller than him. You can see that if you watch the angle of the cross taken from high up on the right-hand side. It's a wonderful shot of what happened, but he's not checking his shoulder to see where the striker is. So Messi's cross sails over Pickford, Stones is caught underneath the ball, and then Lautaro is just able to head it into the net from close range. So the cross was exceptional, Messi was exceptional, but England did not defend that situation well. So while Tuchel encouraged his players to be more defensive with his changes, the players encouraged the manager to be more defensive by reverting to a low block and then struggling to pass out of that situation. There were moments that showed what was possible with a bit more conviction, good pressing immediately after the goal, and then a positive break forward in the 65th minute, but those moments weren't seized upon. And it's too easy just to blame the manager, although he deserves some blame. I don't think the players played well enough after going 1-0 up, even although there were some signs that if they had more conviction, that was possible. The manager made decisions to be increasingly defensive, yet with more defenders on the pitch, the quality of the defending didn't improve, it just got worse. So England didn't help themselves here. What could and should have happened? I think it's wrong to place all of the blame on Tuchel. He needed signs from his players that they could handle more positive substitutions, that those players coming onto the pitch wouldn't just be isolated and that the defence would be overrun. The break forward in that 65th minute, which I've referenced a few times, was that sign. But there were also a lot of signs that England were really struggling and needed defensive reinforcement. So I can understand why Tuchel has taken the view that all of the evidence that England are struggling and need help at the back outweighs the fact that there was a sign that if England went on the front foot and tried to get forward, they would be able to get up the pitch. I think he should have paid more attention to that latter piece of evidence, but he didn't. And then the defenders coming on, the irony, the more defenders, the worse the defending we got. People were defending spaces they weren't used to, though. Like, if you start the game with two centre halves, you're used to where you position yourselves. If you then move to three, the positions you take up change. If you go from a back four to a back five, that changes for the fullbacks as well. And then usually in a back five, if you're a good team, you'll be encouraging your fullbacks to push forward. As it was, England ended up playing with like more of a line at the back five, even a back six. And they just ended up standing in a line. Someone said, I thought it was a good line, that England resembled a row of bats on the row, hanging off their own crossbar, trying to repel wave after wave of Argentinian attack. So shout out to the journalist who came up with that analogy. So while England were adding that defensive reinforcement, the source of the pressure wasn't addressed. Lionel Messi had free reign on the right. If you see the heat map of where he was in the game, it's all in this right-hand pocket about, starting about 20, 25 yards from goal, moving towards the box, moving out towards the right. Like, they didn't shut off the source of the creation of the Argentina attacks. Easier said than done. It's Lionel Messi, arguably the greatest player of all time. I think this World Cup's probably cemented his place as the greatest of all time. To think that I was certainly involved in a discussion before the tournament started as to whether the GOAT was Ronaldo or Messi. And then I was on Team Messi, but I understand the argument for Ronaldo, or I understood the argument for Ronaldo at the time. I don't think there really is a strong argument for Ronaldo at this time. I did say I don't even know if Messi's the greatest Argentinian, never mind the greatest player of all time, but then because of Diego Maradona. But then I think what Messi's doing in this World Cup is, given what he's done in previous World Cups and his whole club career, is just adding weight to his resume. So there's a Messi as the GOAT debate and discussion that I think's reaching a point where it's pretty, really, really difficult to argue against that situation. But anyway, he had free reign on the right. England did nothing to try and stop it. And then even if they did, Messi absolutely skinned Spence and O'Reilly for the winning goal. Those two defenders needed bailed out by the guys in the middle. Despite England having a row of really tall centre halves, none of them could get underneath where they needed to be to then head clear the cross. So, that all said, I think that the players for England needed to show their manager that just adding defensive reinforcements wasn't what was needed. They needed to give him some positive signs, or some more positive signs than that one break forward in the 65th minute. That if he added the likes of Rashford and Saka to the situation, that was going to have a positive effect on England. Of course, then you could say, well, the players, they needed signs from their manager to keep pressing, push forward, not just to sit back. So had Saka or Rashford been brought on, perhaps that would have given signs to the rest of the players that, we're still trying to get on the front foot here. In the end, neither happened. The players didn't signify enough to their manager. The manager didn't show to his players that he had the belief that they could do more than defend. And England just got in a doom loop from that situation. It's a scenario that is repeated across major tournaments with England. At this stage, it's kind of who they are. Late in the game, previous manager Gareth Southgate was criticised for not adjusting to the situation. England have had leads in major games at late stages and not been able to see it through. It wasn't Southgate's fault, partially, but I think now we can see as well some of the players are to blame because there's not someone stepping up, or more than one. You need at least one, but more than one, ideally, to step up. And while other players are struggling, you need someone to drag you through. And it's that inspirational player isn't just dragging you out of the tough situation. It's not just about creating a siege mentality in the team. It's about getting back on the front foot and, starting to use a metaphor, throw punches at your opponent again, not just being on the back foot, and then not just shelling up and not just repelling everything that's coming at you, but how do you get back into a situation where the other team then has to respect what you're doing and defend and make sure you're not going to add to your lead. So until they get that player or players, I think the fear for England has to be that it's going to be a rinse and repeat situation. The idea was that replacing Southgate with Tuchel was going to result in that situation not happening again, that there would be better game management. And to be fair, Tuchel was praised for some of his game management through the tournament. England did really well to see out a situation with Mexico when they were down to 10 men and under siege a bit. But this situation was not like the Mexico situation. Argentina are a better team than Mexico. Argentina have the best player of all time. Mexico do not. And England were not down to 10 men and right up against it with the backs of the wall. They had 11 men and they just didn't use those 11 men as well as they could have. I think Tuchel as well was deservedly given praise for how he set up the team at the start. Jed Spence played really, really well at left back. He was brought in to that position. Morgan Rogers did really, really well on the right-hand side. Again, he was a positive addition to the team. Anthony Gordon was again given the left wing berth. He got the goal. So to start off, and in the first half, England probably edged it. It was a gritty game. but they were doing well. And then they did well up until the 55th minute, and then it started unraveling from there. So how does it get fixed? Well, I think, unless England get a player or players that have a stronger mentality to see them through the end of games, and by seeing through, it's not just sitting back and defending. You watch Spain. If they're in the lead against Argentina in the World Cup final, I would be very, very surprised if they try and see out the game the same way that England try to start the game. They will use the ball to defend. They will keep the ball and make sure that Argentina can't attack because Spain have the ball. And if they have the ball, they're in control. And that's their way of dealing with it. It's not the only way to deal with it, but unless England get players with a more positive attitude to deal with that situation, then I don't think this hurdle is going to be easily overcome. And to go back to a point I made right at the start of the pod, the Premier League itself could be an issue as to why England have this mentality. Because who are the teams in the English Premier League with a really strong mentality that to see out similar situations? So over the last few years, it's been Man City, but that mentality didn't come from a core of English players in the Man City team. It came from the likes of Rodri at the heartbeat of the team. You know, guys like Bernardo Silva, making sure Man City stayed positive, kept pushing till the end, got up the pitch, etc. Weren't just getting stuck back under wave and wave of attack. But then, so Man City were the team with the strongest mentality over the last few years, but not an English core to that team. And even then, now Man City are under a process of change with Pep Guardiola leaving. You look at teams outside of City, like Arsenal are notoriously nervy late on. Perhaps that'll change now that they've got over the line and got their first Premier League title in ages. But certainly when you're watching Arsenal, if you're an Arsenal fan, it can't be a comfortable experience watching Arsenal try and close out games, or certainly last season that was the case. Spurs are notoriously Spursy. I root for Newcastle in England. Newcastle have had a real hard time seeing out Leeds in multiple games across last season, across numerous seasons recently. In the past, Man United were the best at it, but that era under Alex Ferguson is finished. Liverpool under Klopp, again, different era, different time. So who within the Premier League can you see as the foundation of such a mentality shift in the English national team? And then, where are the players that could possibly be the guys that are able to carry England over the line? If you know of the players who are going to be able to do this, please get in the comments and let me know. And also, I think I started this podcast on the back of Scotland's performance in the World Cup and the fallout of that. And I think some of my takes were a bit different to a lot of what was being said around about it. And the reason why I wanted to do a podcast on the England game was, one, because it was like a huge event worldwide. It was a huge event in the UK. It's an event that a lot of people I know are talking about this morning. And it's an event where I think a lot of the easy to get to conclusions are that, Tuchel's to blame and it's just all because of him and his decisions. And I don't think that's the case. And I wanted to have an outlet to put my opinions out there, and hopefully you've enjoyed listening to them, or certainly at least if you've listened to them, then perhaps it's going to inform your decisions. And that can be agreeing with me or disagreeing. I don't mind. Get into the comments and let me know. But that's it for this edition of this podcast. And hopefully I'll be back soon in the near future with some more football chat.